Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the People's Law School. Tonight it is my honor and privilege to present to you Mr. Michael Timberlake. Michael Timberlake grew up right here in Huntsville, attended Huntsville High, went on to Birmingham Southern, and then graduated from the Cumberland School of Law. He's come home and practices with and is a partner with Tommy Senyard and Will League under the name of Senyard, Timberlake, and League, and they do a magnificent job at everything they touch. Michael has gotten to be a specialist in nursing home law, which is what he's going to talk to us about tonight. It is an honor and privilege to present Michael Timberlake.
Thank you, sir. Good evening. As Alan indicated, my name is Michael Timberlake, and I'm with Senyard, Timberlake, and League here in Huntsville. And about 25 to 30% of what I do is nursing home negligence or nursing home abuse cases. We're on the plaintiffs or the prosecuting end of those cases, and so what I want to do is tell everyone a little bit about how we work and what we see on a daily basis, and then talk a little bit about how you can avoid having to come see a lawyer to talk about a loved one or someone who's been in a nursing home that's had poor care or been abused. The statistics in nursing home care in Alabama are kind of amazing. There's about 25,000 people in one of about 230 some odd nursing homes that are residents and reside in a nursing home in Alabama on any given year. That number has been consistent, and it's consistently been rising as the baby boomers age. We expect those numbers to continue to rise. Because of the population of nursing homes that continues to increase, we see more and more claims arising out of situations in nursing homes. As a firm that specializes in personal injury law, we look at the plaintiff's end of the claims, or the position of the people who are injured, or the family members of the people who have died as a result of substandard or malpractice in a nursing home. And so tonight we're going to talk about a little bit about these claims, a little bit about the current climate concerning nursing homes in Alabama, and then we'll talk a little bit about how to prevent ending up coming to see a lawyer. The interesting thing about nursing homes is that they are highly regulated, and that they are regulated by a number of different governmental entities. You start off with the Center for Medicare Services, and then you look down towards the Alabama Department of Public Health, and then you look at other governmental entities like the Government of Accountability, the Congressional Government Accountability Office, and the Department of Health and Human Services. And you say, wow, there's a lot of government involvement in nursing homes. And people say, well, why is that? It's not like that in most, in just a private doctor's office, and it's not like that to the extent that it is in nursing homes in hospitals. The reason for this governmental oversight is a number of governmental acts, congressional acts on the national level, not just the state level, that concern the care that is provided at nursing homes. Where you start off with who pays for nursing homes. Well, typically, nursing home care is paid for by the government. It is typically paid for by Medicare, which is a need-based governmental assistance program. Now, most people think, well, I've got, when I turn 65, I'll have Medicare, and Medicare will pay for my nursing home care. No, sir. No, ma'am. Medicare will not pay for long-term care in a nursing home. So if someone who's even over 65 on Medicare needs full-time nursing care in a nursing home, they are either going to have to pay out of their pocket, or they're going to have to qualify for a need-based program. In Alabama, Medicaid says that if you have a household income of less than $2,000 per month, then you would qualify. So what you would have to do in that situation is, if you had assets, you're going to have to exhaust all your assets to pay for nursing home care. Then Medicaid would pick up the tab for nursing home care. And it can be tremendously expensive. We're talking, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 a month out of people's personal bank accounts to pay for long-term care. because Medicare does not pay for this service. So we urge people to think about long-term care insurance as early as 40 years old. Think about it. Look into it, because the earlier that you get involved in the process, the cheaper it can be. It can be like life insurance, where the earlier you get involved and start paying premiums, the cheaper it can be in the long run. And people need to think about that, because otherwise, any assets that you accumulate in your lifetime and hope to pass on to other people once you're gone may just go up in smoke to nursing home care. I learned that the hard way. I had my mother's mother was in a nursing home for about 9 years prior to her passing, and the rules were the same, but the knowledge, the level of public knowledge was not there, and she spent a tremendous amount of money out of her pocket on nursing home care prior to her passing. So we need to look into that. But that is the reason that the government is involved so much in this type of care, because typically they pay for it. If you look in a situation where Medicaid will pay for day-to-day care, for nursing home care. Now, Medicare will pay for some care in a nursing home, but not day-to-day care, not 24-hour care. Typically, they will pay for 21 or 45-day periods of rehabilitation following a hospitalization. So you can go to a nursing home for rehabilitation. Medicare will pay for that, but after that initial stay of 21, 45 days, they won't pay for any more. So but the combination of Medicare and Medicaid payment is what brings the government into nursing homes to a level of no other facility. The government involvement in this situation requires that these facilities be inspected at least annually. And this inspection is carried out by state agencies. In Alabama, that's the Department of Public Health. Now, the Department of Public Health does the best they can under the circumstances. But there are 233 nursing homes in the state of Alabama. There are 15 nursing homes in the state of Alaska. So it's dramatically different from state to state. And the Alabama Department of Public Health is charged with the responsibility for performing these surveys on 233 nursing homes. Well, the regulations say that they're supposed to be surveyed annually, about every 15 months is really what it looks like. But if you do the math and you figure out if they were going to do a survey annually of every facility, they'd have to survey a facility every day to do that. And it just takes more time than that to do that. So it's very difficult for them to keep up with the load that they have for just regular surveys. And then you bring in the situation where you have someone who complains. Got a family member calls the Alabama Department of Public Health and says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I think my family member's being abused." Well, they've got to go investigate that complaint too. So the truth of the matter is that the Alabama Department of Health, while doing a great job in this situation, is overmatched and undermanned for the task that they have. The survey situation has also been used to determine the level of care that's being provided in nursing homes. And unfortunately, based upon this survey information, it looks like, and it certainly appears, that the level of care that's being provided is not good. In Alabama, according to a recent study from last year, nationally, 91% of nursing homes were deficient in quality of care for the last 3 years, 2005, 2006, and 2007. In Alabama, 96.7% of the homes in 2005, 97% in 2006, and 96.8% of the nursing homes had deficiencies in those years. They average about 7 deficiencies per year when they're investigated from the state. Now, these deficiencies can range from everything from something as minor as the floors are dirty, the facility's not clean enough, to something that is a risk of harm for patients, either bad aids or medication errors or a high rate of decubitus ulcers. But you look at the situation, you say, well, there's 7 deficiencies on average, but all of the homes have them. That is a pure indicator of bad care that's being delivered in these nursing homes. And these numbers are disturbing, but what's also disturbing is additional studies that came out in 2008 from the Government Accountability Office that said, we think that the state surveys that are being done are not accurate. And we think they're not accurate because they are underestimating the deficiencies that are present in the nursing homes. And I'm not here to say that the people at the Department of Public Health are not doing a good job. And I'll talk a little bit to you about how they're doing a better job. But that is disturbing because it actually shows that the surveys that show, or the studies that show there is poor care, it's actually worse than those studies indicate. So when you look at that situation, it's something that should be very disturbing. And the Congressional Government Accountability Office study showed that inspectors missed serious problems in 25% of the inspections. That's a quarter of the inspections for these nursing homes that they missed serious problems in. So that is very disturbing from a regulatory standpoint. And it all really kind of boils down to budgeting. And in this day and age, with the budget crisis that every states are going to face, we think the situation is going to get worse. But we know the Alabama Department of Health has hired good people, and they do a good job investigating, but they are just completely outmatched by the number of homes and the number of complaints that they have. Now, the Alabama Department of Health, to their credit, has done a very good job in the past couple of years of trying to reconcile or remedy these issues. They have improved this situation, even though in the years past that we had spent substantially less on regulation, 50% less than some states. Recently, in 2008, the Alabama Department of Health has hired additional inspectors and opened 2 branch offices in the state of Alabama. So this is very good news. And as a result, they have resolved the backlog for nursing home annual survey investigations that had been present for years and years and years. The good thing, these annual inspections are occurring, and instead of 15 to 18 months, they may occur, 8 to 12 months apart. So they're going to get better with these annual inspections. The inspections are going to be closer in time and more properly performed. And they've also got people that are located regionally so that they can get to know the facilities better and that they can get to know the people involved better and do better jobs. Now, the good thing is they're working on eliminating not only the annual inspection backlog, but the backlog of about 1,200 complaint investigations. Like when a family member calls in and says, look, I think my mom or my dad or my sister is being abused at a nursing home, they can come up and do that complaint investigation, find out what's going on, and try to remedy the problem. And previously, it had been a backlog as many as 1,200, and they're working on remedying that backlog. So that's a good thing. And I talked a lot about these surveys right at the beginning of this talk about nursing homes because of the importance that the surveys have to ultimately what we do or what I do, and that's litigation. If a claim is litigated, if a claim is presented against a nursing home, the survey information that's collected by the Department of Public Health, the state of Alabama, is critical and crucial to investigating these types of complaints. We are able to take claims of complaint abuse claims and essentially receive that information from the Department of Health and use their investigation to pursue our claims. In the absence of this, what we're left is doing our own investigation through either investigators and relying upon former employees or our current employees to try to talk to us about the situation. And obviously that can be difficult. But when the state investigators go into these nursing homes, They can tell the nursing homes, this is what I need, and these are the people that I want to talk to, and they do an investigation and they make reports. And that information is crucial. Well, unfortunately, late last year, in the wee hours of the terms of the Bush administration decided that they would pass yet another little secret thing to try to make it harder for people to prove claims against nursing homes. And here's what they did. They went in, they said, okay, all these people that are state employees that work for the Alabama Department of Public Health that survey nursing homes, well, now we're going to consider them to be federal employees. We say, okay, well, that's not a big deal. Well, it's a big deal because now, in order to receive the information that they developed when they go into a nursing home for a complaint investigation, and they make notes, and they talk to employees, and they review records, and they make conclusions based upon the state and federal standards about whether the nursing home was giving substandard care, that information that's paid for with taxpayer dollars is no longer available to the taxpayer. The Bush administration, by making these people federal government employees, has restricted our right to receive this information and the family's right to receive this information. One little stroke of the pen, no big debate. December, regulatory ruling changed the way that we're going to be able to do business and changed the way that we're going to be able to shed light on the way these nursing homes do business. Have you ever seen the movie Raiders of the Lost Ark? You know that big warehouse where they put the ark? That's where this information is going. And it's all simply designed to try to protect the nursing home industry. And most of these homes are for-profit homes. There are a few homes that are public homes, and they do a very good job. There's one in Chattanooga that's remarkable. There's one in Pennsylvania that Hillary Clinton went to visit when the Clintons were in office, and they provided the best care available. It's unbelievable the type of care that can be provided. But when you put for-profit involved in this situation, it becomes a different story in many cases. But that's the situation that we're fighting. And simply from a regulatory perspective, we think that that was wrong, and we think that it's something that should be changed, and it's something that we think will be changed. But even the point of something as simple as trying to depose one of these people that has gone in and do a state investigation to find out what they have to say, that all has to be approved by the federal government. And I'm sure, as you can imagine, that can be very difficult. But we're still fighting forward. We're trying to get that changed. And unfortunately, it's come to this in a lot of situations. Because of the difficulty with state and federal regulations and the lack of manpower and money, lawyers are being hired to fight this battle to try to regulate and try to prove the care in nursing homes. And that's essentially what our firm does. In the 12 to 15 years that I've been in practice, we have handled hundreds of nursing home cases and involving all kinds of different situations. The primary type of situations that we're looking at, we'll discuss here for just a minute. One of the things that we see a lot is pressure sores, or what people call decubitus ulcers. And essentially those are just, from a physical perspective, injuries that are occurred when a body part has pressure on it and loses blood flow, loses circulation, and the skin starts to decay or rot. And essentially those are caused 90% of the time by failure to properly turn someone. Someone can't move around in the bed themselves, and they need assistance to be moved into different positions. The standards say every 2 hours, so that they don't develop these skin ulcers or these problems on their bodies. The most common places are on the feet, on the hips, on your backside, on your tailbone. I've seen some on the elbows. But these are areas where there is low circulation to begin with, and then if you put someone who's in a compromised state and you leave them there without proper care, they're going to develop these ulcers. And they develop in a short period of time. Part of the battle that we fight in these situations is, was this ulcer preventable or was it something that was going to occur? Well, we basically take the position that they are always preventable. That unless somebody's circulation is so poor that they absolutely just have ischemic or no blood flow to the area, then those areas of your body should be able to be salvaged, or should not. These ulcers should not allow. The other type of situation we see when regarding this is a situation where they fail to treat the ulcer properly. They allow it to develop in this situation, and then they don't take the progressive steps that are necessary to treat the situation. They don't change the treatments on a regular basis. They don't consult with wound care physicians or even in-house doctors concerning these types of problems. And when that happens, a situation that can be as simple as a red spot can turn into a blister, can turn into a sore, that can turn into a situation requiring amputation of a limb. At this point in time, we're handling a claim where a gentleman had bilateral amputations of his legs above the knees, and it all started with pressure sores on his feet. That can be a definite situation that we see a pretty good bit. We also see a situation where people just aren't receiving enough nutrition in a nursing home, that their diet is not proper. And primarily the problem with diet is this, is that they're not receiving the attention that they need to get the calories into their stomach from the plate. It is real easy for someone to go slide a tray in front of somebody and said, I fed them. But if this is a 67-year-old person with Alzheimer's disease that doesn't know that that's food and doesn't know that they have to eat, just putting a tray of food in front of them is not going to do them any good. And so what we have seen is nursing homes that will not do that, that will say, okay, put the food, patient refused to eat. Or they'll move food around on the tray and say, patient ate 60%. And this is all tracked on little sheets. But the truth is, the patients are not receiving the nutrition they need, and we can track it with weight loss. And we can ask the family members when they come to see us, will mom or daddy eat? Oh yeah, they'll eat. When we go feed them, they'll eat, and they'll eat like a horse. And it's because they're hungry. But they need somebody there to feed them, to help feed them. And the nursing home, and it's not that these people are doing this on purpose, but they just don't have enough people for the number of patients that they have in these places. So you end up with patients that are getting food, but they're not getting fed. And that results in malnutrition. Nursing homes will say, well, they won't eat, or they have a swallowing problem. And in some cases that's true, that people end up with esophageal problems, or they end up with issues where they can't swallow properly, or they are at risk for aspirating or swallowing food into their lungs, which creates a risk. And then the nursing home will recommend a G-tube, or a tube directly into the stomach. Well, those tubes they have their own set of issues, including infection, the possibility of coming out, permanency with regard to a tube running into your abdominal cavity, into your stomach, and maintaining those tubes. If they're not flushed properly, they can create their own issues. So that's not the answer to this question. We think the answer to this problem is attention and care and proper feeding. Amazingly, in addition to malnutrition, we also see a situation where patients just don't have enough fluid. One of the first cases I handled in this situation, I got in some medical records and I looked at it, and number one on the diagnosis was volume depletion. Well, I was a lawyer, and I looked at it and I said, well, volume depletion, what does that mean? So I got up my medical dictionary here and I looked it up. It says volume depletion, and it says marked dehydration. So I said, well, what does that mean? The volume depletion due to marked dehydration, it means these people aren't getting enough water. Is they're not getting enough water to drink to prevent dehydration. And the human body needs water. There's no question about it. And in a nursing home with 24-hour assisted care, and I'm not talking about one-on-one care, somebody sitting there, but with 24 hours care, you should be able to get somebody there to help you drink enough water so that you don't end up in the hospital with volume depletion. They're being paid to render this assistance. And when they don't, it's just plain wrong. The problems with dehydration are you see people that won't drink. And again, we talk about people with swallowing disorders. Well, those are all things that can be identified and they can remedy these situations. Or they can just say, look, we can't handle it. You know, this person needs IV fluids. We need to either do that in the facility or get them out of the facility for IV fluids. But that needs to be done before someone gets so dehydrated it puts them at risk for death or puts them in a situation where they have multi-organ failure, which is what we see in some cases. One of the other prevalent things that we see in nursing homes are injuries due to falls or accidents. And I'll be the first to tell you that it is difficult in nursing home setting to prevent every single patient from falling down and hurting themselves. And not all falls are the result of substandard care. Some falls just happen. But in many situations that we see, we can track the reason for the fall directly to poor care, to poor assessment, to poor planning, and to poor understanding of what this patient's needs are. What we see when a person goes into a nursing home, you see an assessment that's done pursuant to a lot of these government standards. They have to do fall risk assessments to determine their level of thinking, their level of ability to get around, what kind of gait they have, the level of assistance that they need. And based upon that, you can determine their risk for falls. And you see some people that will score off the charts, 25 on a fall risk assessment where 10 or 12 is a high risk for falls. And guess what? Within 2 or 3 days, they're falling. And they've skinned a knee or they've hurt a shoulder. 2 or 3 weeks later, they've gotten another injury. 2 or 3 weeks later, it's another injury. And then, ladies and gentlemen, what comes next? The hip. And unfortunately, when elderly people fall and break a hip, it is a very, very traumatic event. And many, many times, such as in the case of President Reagan, it's a life-threatening event and can be fatal. So we see this situation and we can track it. If they don't assess them right on the beginning and they don't use proper interventions as they go to determine what can be done to prevent these people from falling, then it's inevitable that it's going to happen, and then the big one is going to happen, and it's going to injure the person severely. And what we see in the situation is this. Look at the person, monitor it, and as the nursing home gets to know these people, they need to institute proper precautions. And we're not talking about restraints or tying somebody to a bed, but we're talking about proper use of bed alarms so that if a patient tries to get up out of bed, then the nursing home staff is aware of that. And we're talking about use of activities during the day so you don't have patients that are trying to get up and wander in the middle of the night and walk all around the nursing home. And we're talking about providing proper assistance with toileting so that they don't have to go to the bathroom in their beds, which is a situation we find a lot of them trying to do, get up out of the bed so they don't have to urinate on themselves, and then when they're getting out of the bed, they fall. And that's all just a matter of proper assistance and attention to these people's needs. So it's a situation that, yes, some falls are going to happen because of the climate. But some falls and many falls are avoidable with proper care, and the injury that occurs from falls can be minimized with the use of certain devices such as a lowered bed. We've seen mats on the floor. I was just at a theme park, and they have a floor in those situations that is cushioned in case children fall down. So there's different types of device that can be used in all different situations to try to prevent the severity of injury from a fall. Attentive staff is really the best thing that can be used. These people need to get to know their patients, understand what their needs are, the timing of their needs, and with that situation, falls can be prevented. Another thing we see, and unfortunately it's very common as well, are medication errors. Either a patient gets too much medication, not enough medication, or they're receiving medication without the proper attention. Our firm handled a claim with a person that was receiving a blood thinner, and their blood, because they were receiving this blood thinner, their blood had to be monitored on a daily basis to determine whether it was getting too thin. And the nursing home failed to follow the doctor's orders, specific orders in this case, to monitor the blood on a daily basis. And what happened is the blood got so thin that when the patient suffered a minor incident where he bumped his head, he had a tremendous subdural hematoma, and it killed him. And it wouldn't have happened to any other resident, but he was so fragile and his blood was so thin from this incident, when he had this injury, it killed him. And it was all a direct result of their failure to monitor the blood levels, has been indicated, by the doctor. We see over-medication. Unfortunately, I've had nurses testify in cases that, med time is bedtime. And there are drugs out there that you think Ambien will put you out, these other drugs will put you down for days. So there are drugs that can be used to basically take patients just out of the loop. And unfortunately, they are being prescribed by physicians, and they're being administered in a nursing home setting. And we've seen situations where they're supposed to be PRN, which means as needed, if the patient is agitated or upset or unable to sleep, but essentially they're being administered on a regular basis to basically just take the patient out of the picture at nighttime or sometimes during the day. So we see that situation where patients are over-medicated. We see some patients that are under-medicated because the staff has decided that they're going to take the medication home or on the street and sell it. And that's just a complete situation that's unacceptable, and the nursing home administration should be able to monitor their staff, survey their staff, hire appropriate staff to avoid that type of situation. We've also seen cases that are different. We call them general abuse or neglect cases. My partner right now is handling a case involving an elopement with a lady who just decided she was getting out. She was leaving. Well, what was real interesting about the case is the nursing home said, hey, there's nothing we can do about it. If somebody just wants to get up and run out the door, what are we going to do? And we said, well, let's think about this. We looked at her medication. We looked at the side effects of her medication. And lo and behold, there's a lot of literature out there that says these people tend to elope. We looked at her specific mental diagnosis, and they had, lo and behold, evaluated her. Yeah, she's a risk for elopement. She's going to run away. On the days prior to the time that she actually escaped, or she didn't even escape, she walked out the front door. On the days prior to this, she called her son on a number of occasions and said, I'm leaving. I'm coming home. I'm getting out of this place. And the son did the right thing, picked up the phone, called the administrator and said, look, she's threatening to go. She's trying to get out of here. You need to do something about this. Went down there, talked to her. Said, you need to stay here. These people are going to take care of you. The day that she was going to leave, she put her stuff in a bag and went to the front desk and said, I'm checking out. Told them she was leaving. And within hours of that, she was found next door in the parking lot of the McDonald's. Broken hip, multiple other injuries. Nursing home says, we didn't know she was going to leave. And we said, you're the only ones. So it's a strange situation when this thing's happened, and you just, when you look at it at first and you say, well, gosh, if somebody's going to run out the front door, what are they going to do about it? Well, there are a lot of signs that show people are going to do these things, and in nursing homes, these are common problems. These people are trained to understand these problems, and they need to do their jobs better and be more effective with it. We've seen verbal, mental abuse, just absolute, smackdowns in nursing homes with aides, with patients that we've had on videotape. We've seen situations that were unsanitary with dogs and cats in nursing homes. We've seen situations where residents who obviously are not sexually active end up with sexually transmitted diseases in a nursing home. So there can be very, very difficult situations that we've dealt with that arise from the lack of proper monitoring and care of these residents. The Alabama Medical Liability Act provides protection to the nursing home in these situations. You can't just go into court and say a nursing home's done something wrong. You've got to be able to prove your case. And you have to prove your case through nurses, and you have to prove your case through doctors, and prove that they have done something wrong. They have violated the standard of care in the way that they've handled the patient. And in order to prove that, you have to have experts to come in and testify against the nursing home, either nurses and doctors. Unfortunately, the Medical Liability Act provides a lot of protection and prevents us from getting into things like prior acts and omissions of the nursing homes. And it also prevents us from doing a discovery or telling a jury about other bad things this nursing home has done. So it does provide some protection for the nursing home. We've talked a pretty good bit about governmental regulation, and just for a couple of minutes I want to talk to you about what we can do to try to prevent you having to come see me in this situation. There are a number of new things that have been done, especially on the federal level with regard to nursing homes. One is with Medicare, and they've come up with a new ranking system. It is a star type system so that you can look at a nursing home in your area and compare it to other nursing homes in your area on a simple star type rating system. So if you're considering putting someone in a nursing home, I urge you to go do that immediately. The first thing, look at the star system, figure out which nursing homes are doing better and which nursing homes are not doing better. The other thing is go visit the nursing home, talk to the administrator, talk to other residents' families about the care that they have been provided. Finally, if you put a resident in a nursing home, the way to try to ensure proper care is to be involved in their care. And that doesn't mean that you've got to be there 24/7, but what it means is that you have to go visit at times, maybe for 5 minutes here, 10 minutes there, on your lunch hour before you go to work, after work, or just stop by in the afternoon, or have a friend or family member stop by. Because these unplanned visits are when you really get to see what the care is like in a nursing home setting and the care that your loved one's being provided. So that's one of the ways you can do this. How many nursing homes? I think the last count, I think there are about 20 in Madison County. And again, some do a fine job, and we've seen some that have been habitual type offenders. Yes, sir.
What is the website that has a star rating that can go in and do these
Right. It's www.medicare.gov, and it's in the handout. But if you look at their website, they have a way for you to look at the state deficiency reports, and then they have to have a way to show you the rating system that they use. But Medicaid? No, ma'am. Medicaid is essentially it is a need-based situation. They look at your household income or the money that is available to you in any given month. If it's over $2,000, you will not qualify for Medicaid. If your household income is under $2,000, you can qualify for Medicaid assistance. We've talked a little bit about other things, but I want to just briefly say something about arbitration. And unfortunately, arbitration is a process that tries to avoid trial by juries, and it's crept its way into the nursing home situation, and it's become very important for us. Because essentially what they want to do is take someone who's elderly with nowhere else to go. Family's already decided they can't take them home. Hospital won't keep them in the hospital. And they've said, okay, we'll take you into our facility, but we want you to sign away your right to try your case before a jury if we do something wrong. They want you to sign an arbitration agreement that deprives you of your right to try your case before a jury of your peers before they will accept you as a patient. And they want most of these people that go into a nursing home either are incompetent, borderline incompetent, or don't have the mental sophistication to understand what an arbitration clause is. So what the courts have done through years in order to protect nursing homes is said, okay, well, if mama didn't sign, I don't care if son doesn't have a power of attorney. If son signed, we're going to say that that's an enforceable arbitration agreement. Well, but what the real problem is they're making these arbitration agreements valid to begin with. Is not only are they letting someone other than the resident sign away their rights, but they're allowing them to be enforceable at all. And what we're saying is that that's a contract under duress and it's wrong. And there's some litigation that will come down the pipe in 2009 that we need to look out for, we need to pay attention to. It's being sponsored by Senators Cole from Wisconsin and Mel Martinez, a Republican from Florida. And what they're saying is that there should be fairness in litigation in nursing home arbitration, and that these contracts should not be allowed. And so we need to pay attention to that litigation. Well, most of the nursing homes will say that, you know, and like I said, it's a contract of duress. There's no recourse. You've already made a decision that you can't take your loved one home, and if all the nursing homes have banded together and done what they did and required everybody to sign an arbitration agreement, then there's not a whole lot of choice.
Is arbitration usually stacked against the patient?
Arbitration is typically stacked against the patient because it restricts our ability to use the subpoenas. It restricts our ability to use the court process to try to develop evidence in a case. The other thing it does is deprive you of presenting your case to a jury or 12 people of your peers, and instead you're presenting your case to one person who's typically a lawyer or typically somebody who is in the healthcare business that has experience in this area and has seen, you know, how this works, and is typically less, more pro nursing home than pro patient. Yes, ma'am.
I was just going to comment, having gone through all this with my mother very recently. Of the nursing homes in this county, a number of them will not take long-term. They'll only take short-term and rehab, even though they're a nursing home. Some of them will not take Medicare, even for that first 20 or 100 days. And when you have to make a decision like in 2 days because she's going to be, checked out of the hospital, it's a challenge.
Right. It's an unbelievable challenge for someone who, without any medical or legal knowledge, and it is on a very short time frame. So what we try to tell people to do is try to educate you on this process as much as we can on the front end. And if you think that it's a possibility, at least, look into it. Go talk to a lawyer that specializes in health care. Go to these governmental sites. Make sure you know what you're getting into, because it can happen in a big hurry. Okay. Well, like I said, I appreciate your time, and I think this is a challenge that we face as a society, and I think that is a situation where I've seen progress in the 15 years that we've been doing this kind of work, but I've also seen recurrence that can be disturbing. What I would encourage everyone to do is to make sure that you're open to the process and you understand that the government has a lot of power in this situation, and that let your taxpayer dollars do what they're supposed to do, and let this information from the surveys get out there, and fight this situation where nursing homes are trying to push arbitration on people, and talk to your friends and family members about nursing homes and what we can do to try to prevent this crisis. Thank you.
Thank all of you for being here. I know we've had a big time here at the People's Law School, and tonight is graduation, and looks like we've got a lot of graduates. Looks like around 58 I count tonight. And let's see, I know I would like to first of all, Lauren Howard, I know you. Your mama spoke here a year or so ago. She's Rachel Howard.
Yes,
Have you enjoyed the program?
very much so. It's incredibly informative, and I've been able to apply it to a bunch of different things that I've come across.
Very good. Now, I see your grandfather, Mr. Richard Kramer's back in the back, and for some reason he didn't want to come up. I know he's been with the city a long time, and you've come with him every night. And
Yes.
earlier I was trying to figure out who you are, and now I know. Welcome, and thank you for coming.
How about a veteran? Do we want to have a veteran? How was People's Law School this year?
It's very good. This is my 13th year, and I will be back next year, and I've learned something every session.
And so you've learned something a little, well, I guess new every time. There's always something different. So I encourage everybody to come back and see us again next year.
Young man here, I know this is like your third time, is that right?
This is the second time, but it was 20 years ago, and there's a lot I've forgotten in 20 years. So I need a refresher course.
Very good. What do you think, Dan?
It's a great survey, a lot of information, packaged very well. Alan says they bring the best, and I believe they do.
Well, it was kind of bothered me that people think that way about nursing. It's a very rewarding profession, and we love our patients.
You ought to try being a lawyer and see what they say. I want you to know. By the way, my daughter-in-law is about to graduate from nursing school, and I know it takes a special breed.
My name is Chuck Jones.
Chuck, good name, Chuck. Is there any topics that that you would like to see us do next year that you would like to hear about at People's Law School that maybe we could get someone to come talk about?
I think the topics were well selected.
Let me ask you, is there any particular program that you liked or would suggest?
The one I really liked, because I'm a senior citizen, was Connie Glass Elder Law. So much information that we need to know ahead of time before we go into a nursing home, and our families need to know.
I'll tell you, I know that too, and I will tell you, when my own mother reached that point, I went straight to Connie Glass and talked to her and Carol Wallace, and they certainly made a big help in our lives. Mr. Patterson, I see you've been mighty quiet over there. I just have to give a little bit of
Well, I think we have a super program, and probably if I were to make any suggestions, it would relate to the insurance presentation by Mr. Richardson. I think it's worth a two-session presentation.
I agree. I want you to know that one lady who had to leave mentioned that Mr. Richardson met with her for an hour after the program in his office, and she wanted to be sure to let me thank him publicly for the work he did and the advice he gave her. And she, like several have said, like you, that he did a magnificent job, and it was a great deal of information. Come here, Margaret. Here, Margaret's been here before. Margaret, what do you think? I know, I've been here for years, and I know our program. Sometimes I feel like it's one of those Anthony Robbins seminars that everybody here is just inspired and want to learn. What do you think about it?
I found it interesting this year that a lot of the children of the lawyers came and they were presenters. So apparently the law profession is a good profession to go into if the parents advocate to have the children come in.
I think it's funny, some of the students that I teach, I help lead them in careers and things, and a lot of them, when I meet the parents or themselves, they'll say, well, my mom always says I should be a lawyer because I like to argue.
Yeah. And I believe you teach at Buckhorn High School, and I understand that you're going to bring some of your students to the courthouse this year, as you've done in the past, to show them what the courtrooms are really about. And I will tell you what I've learned is that in putting on these programs, I learn something every time I go. And I will tell you, I also wish I had known, like Lauren Howard, I will tell you right here, I wish I'd had the opportunity to see lawyers and how they operated, and it will inspire you and direct you as to maybe where you should go.
Alan does a lot of work for this, and this is his program. And he's been doing this for years. He puts a lot of time and effort to it. And I just want to say congratulate Alan for another great year at People's Law School.
Thank you.
In the courtroom, justice is blind. But in our communities, many people seek a different kind of justice, civil justice. The opportunity to have food and shelter, health care, a quality education, a safe environment, and the chance to work. This justice, civil justice, requires that we remove the blindfold and open our eyes to the needs around us.
What would be more important than caring about the people around you, the citizens of Alabama?
And there's not too many organizations invest in people.
The purpose of this foundation is to create opportunities to fund unmet needs across this state.
People always have the need to be needed.
I think for me, civil justice, and particularly in the work that we do, means that justice is for everybody.
And I think of it being a just society, you know, that we have the same services provided for all people.
No matter where you stay, you still should have the opportunity to have everyone else. I think that's just a civil thing to do.
Attorneys work tirelessly as dedicated, compassionate professionals to ensure justice is delivered to all citizens, especially those who are less fortunate or typically underserved. The Alabama Civil Justice Foundation represents the heart and soul of the legal profession in Alabama by giving attorneys the opportunity to invest in the needs of its people. The Alabama Civil Justice Foundation partnered with the City of Anniston to create the College Gateway Program. This program provides local students with tutoring for the high school exit exam, as well as assisting them in applying for college scholarships and financial aid.
Most of these kids are low-income, single-family homes. Kids can actually come in, and we have someone that will help them to fill out applications, to fill out their FAFSA forms.
As a result of 2003's Talbert case and the charitable donations of the 4 plaintiff law firms, the Anniston Civil Justice Fund was established to improve educational opportunities for the young people of West Anniston.
I think the empowerment that you're doing, that this kid can come back to this community and say, I made it and you can too. And I think that's what this program has done.
The Department of Senior Services serves our seniors across the state, primarily age 60 and over. We have been very, very fortunate to have established a relationship between our agency and the Alabama Civil Justice Foundation. It has been a wonderful experience for us because we're very limited in our resources, and they've been a great sponsor for some of the things that we've advocated for seniors in protecting them against various things, such as the Medicare fraud. It's been a wonderful opportunity to have a resource that's available to our seniors to help them, to protect them against fraud and abuse. And thus we developed the Medicare Fraud Toolkit. They work through that are members of the foundation, and we're able to distribute that statewide, which played a great, great role in our accomplishing what we set out to do.
The Alabama Civil Justice Foundation is critically important because they take the time and the effort to find those people who are otherwise underserved or not served at all. They ferret those groups out and provide funding to people who otherwise perhaps would be unassisted.
And there's not too many organizations invest in people, projects, but not people. And I think the Civil Justice Foundation does invest in people.
I think there'd be a lot of parts of the community that might not be heard.
The Civil Justice Foundation fills in the gap along with many other foundations across the state of Alabama to meet those unmet needs.
Since 1993, the Alabama Civil Justice Foundation has awarded millions to organizations throughout the state that serve Alabama's children, families, and seniors. With these and other efforts, the ACJF and the lawyers it represents has become a recognized leader in its support for those in need. The Alabama Civil Justice Foundation. Attorneys give. ACJF invests. Alabama is strengthened.